beautiful vintage book to show you all, and I've gathered up a variety of different items from my collection that fit the same aesthetic, which of course is Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I collect a variety of different things, including fairy tales, folk tales, historical fiction, and I have always loved Arthuriana. I have a few other books in my collection with a similar subject. I think the various legends of King Arthur and the Knights of his Round Table are timeless. I loved knights and medieval fairy tales growing up in particular. I love the imagery. There's so much depth as well. I think you can interpret the legends of Arthur so many ways. It's so cool to see how they grow over time and some of their very early origins, maybe even pre-Christian origins, and how they get added to over the centuries. So it's one of my absolute favorite things to collect. I do have as well a first edition, second printing of probably the version of the story that most people know the most, which is Sword and the Stone by T.H. White, which of course was turned into the Disney animated classic. So we won't go through this one too much, but it is a delight, and The Once and Future King is my favorite book of all time. I have a first edition of that as well, but it's high up on the shelf. So I'll be using this to help protect and to help kind of brace this copy, which is a little bit fragile. So when I look for an antique book, I'm really interested in specific versions, and I was mostly looking for a copy of Mallory's original Morte with beautiful illustrations, and I love Arthur Rackham, so that is what we have here today. I'll have to move our sword a little bit for some room here. We have this beautiful gold cover. It's gorgeous, gorgeous herald. And you can see this one has an inscription from 1935. I certainly did not pay that price for it. You can already see why I love this particular version. So we have here how Arthur drew his sword Excalibur for the first time. And I love Rackham illustrations in particular. It's a really moody, organic style. You'll see his love of costume, and it's really gorgeous. Watercolors, very deep and mysterious, and his creature designs as well are just really beautiful. This is from 1920, but I believe this is yes, a second edition. So this is a full antique, originally copyrighted in 1917, and this is the 1920 printing. So along with our beautiful full color illustrations, you'll see illustrations as well. And I love this style. It's very reminiscent of what you would see in a medieval manuscript. The story of King Arthur and his knights is one of the greatest that man has ever made, greater by far than that of Charlemagne, which had come into fashion a little earlier, greater perhaps even than the tale of Troy, already some 2,000 years old, which for some centuries it eclipsed. It is through the 15th century prose of Sir Thomas Mallory, in which homeliness and nobility go hand in hand, that it holds its place in our hearts. But the story itself was the outcome of the second half of the 12th century and the beginning of the 13th, the days in England of Henry II and his 3 turbulent sons, Geoffrey, Richard Coeur de Lion, and John. The days in France of Trevère and Troubadour, the days in Italy of St. Francis of Assisi, and the worldliness against which he strove. Something of the spirit of all these entered into the story, together with some contemporary theology, which, while the stuff of which it is woven was largely derived from the Celtic borderland with which the Norman rulers of England had come in contact in Wales and Brittany. In the days when the Arthurian romances were coming into existence, violence, cruelty, and luxury were rampant, and the story bears many traces of them. But the greatness of these evils called forth some great virtues to counter them, and the story bears traces of these also, and strives gallantly to be true to its ideals, though in primitive notions, more especially the old belief in magic, crop up in it, it sometimes stumbles. Despite such stumblings, it is penetrated to its very core by the special virtues of days in which men were content to live dangerously, carrying their lives in their hands and willing to lay them down lightly rather than break the rules of the game or be faithless to word or friend. A wandering knight challenges a great lord in a trial of skill to be fought oft to death or exhaustion beneath the walls of the lord's castle. The wandering knight wins the day and the lord becomes his vassal, takes him into his castle, feasts him, appoints a guard for his protection, and when the victor bids him report himself at Arthur's court, comes on the appointed day attended by all his retinue. That the Lord's men should interfere in the fight, or the Lord himself break his promise, was unthinkable to these romances. And on this simple basis of gallantry and good faith, there was built up a code full of fine courtesies, such as those which forbade a great jouster to interfere with a lesser one on the day when he was outdoing himself, or a fresh knight to challenge one already tied with many victories. And I think that is one of the real beauties of Arthurian legend. It's such an amazing, as we see here, mix of I have a cat cameo. Such an amazing mix of different inspirations and time periods, and each generation that tells the stories adds their own worries and wonders and their own values to it. But it always calls back to this darker time, this separate time, kind of out of time itself, and the competing values of gallantry and brutality, power, and the beauty of simplicity and the beauty of kindness and righteousness. She may be blocking the light. But I think that is the real wonder of the story. Now, most people, I think, are very familiar with Arthur's story, how he comes to claim the sword and stone and found Camelot and the Round Table with the help of Merlin, and perhaps they may even know of some of his most celebrated knights and courtiers, like Guinevere, his queen, and Lancelot and their fateful tryst. But I love some of the supporting characters as well. So, just flip through here. And maybe on another day I'll read have agreed many illustrations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in full color, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in black and white. It's stuff like this that I love. So Arthur's father, of course, is the vicious King Arthur Pendragon, and his wife Igraine. And when Arthur was born, he was hidden away to save him. He's raised up in the countryside with a stepbrother, Kay, who is quite brutish and rather cruel to him, and he's raised by Sir Ector, his father, before he pulls the sword from the stone. This is great. This is the questing beast, often thought to be based on a giraffe, the head of a serpent, the body of a leopard, claws of an eagle, and the hind quarters of a deer. Who is sought by King Pellinore. There are all these wonderful knights at the table who go on their own quests. Arthur, of course, he pulls the sword from the stone and then is given Excalibur by the Lady of the Lake. It's a place of magic and monsters. We have Merlin and Nimue, who is one of my favorites. Merlin falls in love with her and she tricks him into going beneath the earth and traps him there. So we have these magical women, fairies, monsters like the questing beast and dragons, unicorns. And Arthur himself, of course, is a tale of tragedy and inescapable fate. He is the stepbrother of Morgana, Morgas, Morgan Le Fay. Sometimes they're conflated into the same person, separate people. But she is the daughter of Igraine, his mother, by another king, and without knowing that, he fathers a son by her, Morte. And similar to the Bible, he tries to kill all of the potential children who could be Mordred after hearing a prophecy that he will be the end of Camelot. So he tries to hide his sin, and from that, of course, sows the seeds of his own downfall. So it's a really beautiful story of tragedy and how fallible people can be, even if they are kind of larger than life. These amazing elements of magic. So here, Morgan Le Fay has turned herself into stone to hide from her attackers. He himself has his own love story. He saves a woman from Morgan Le Fay's ire, and himself fathers a child out of wedlock with her, who is Gawain. So, very sordid family history here, very soap opera. This is another amazing full-color illustration. You can see Rackham's beautiful handling of particularly forests, very wild and windswept and ominous. And I love how he's portrayed armor. It's a really gorgeous detail. I could probably talk forever about medieval literature and some of the symbolism there. Each of these stories is its own little capsule and part of a larger narrative, and you see a lot of themes of transformation and hunt and wounds, spiritual wounds and physical ones, curses. People aren't who they say they are. There's so many little tales within this. The red knight. This one's really amazing as well. Gorgeous, gorgeous armor. The level of detail from Rackham is just amazing. Each one of these I could put up on the wall. They're so beautiful. And her dress is gorgeous with this amazing mantle. Albemarle blew a horn, and then the knight of the red lawns came to fight him, and Albemarle made him yield to the lady and go unto King Arthur's court, and cry Sir Launcelot's mercy, and of the troth plight of a monk and a lady. A bunch of defeated knights hanging from a tree, very ominous. Very ominous. Beautiful in her golden gown and cape trimmed in ermine. We have Gawain. I love the scratchy style here. Tristram and Isolde, which is a very famous tragic love story in its own, and Palamedes, who is in love with Isolde, as you know. It's gorgeous. Really beautiful. How Tristram and Isolde drank the love drink. It's very Romeo and Juliet. This is Dagonet, who is the jester of King Arthur, and he pokes fun at all of the different lordly knights at the table, who of course say they uphold these courtly ideals, but maybe not always. So sweet. Dinadan, another one of the lesser known lights. Percival is one of the very noble, very pious knights. Other than Galahad, I misspoke, that is Galahad, not Gawain, is Lancelot's son. I love the dog down here. Such great character on everyone's faces. Come again to the questing beast. And the sun is such a lovely image. I love his kind of scrangly, little mischievous monsters, his amazing talent. The questing beast can never be caught, and all of the knights chase after her through the wilderness, and they can never catch up to her. We have Gawain and the Green Knight, another of my favorite stories. Story of the passage of time, of how they're inconsequential against it. Some really interesting parody with the older folk traditions and Christian tradition of cycles. It's very spooky. So Palamedes is from the Far East. He is a Muslim character. So they do have very interesting, diverse cast of the Round Table. And Sir Tristan and him are both in love with Isolde, who is married to another man, and they joust each other for her favor, and Palamedes loses. So he must be christened. It's really interesting views on religion at the time, and I'm sure these stories have morphed over the centuries. It's really kind of fascinating to see what people care about and gets translated to me. This is another amazing image. Look at all of that beautiful detail on this Gothic armor. Really, really gorgeous. You could just step right off the page, right? And again, this really like scrungly dragon. He's kind of like a big dog. He's not very, he's a fiend dragon, but he doesn't seem very terrifying to me. There's Lancelot. At Castle Corbin, a maiden bear foretold the achievements of Galahad. be quite as bright. That's better. Lancelot and Elaine is mother of Galahad, and she falls in love with Lancelot when he steals her from Morte. This is really gorgeous. I love this one. Their hawk and the castle in the background. Really, really beautiful. Even the water, it's so sketchy, but so much presence to it. And so Galahad, in a parallel to Arthur, there's a marble block that floats down the river with a sword in it. And all of the knights of the table test their luck, but no one is pure enough of heart to claim it except for young Galahad, with an older Arthur looking on. It's like the changing of the cards, the next generation, which will be the one to bring down Camelot in the end. And this starts the quest for the Grail. Sir Lancelot saw a sick man healed with the sangreal, and how a voice spoke to him, how he was shriven, and a good man gave him a hair shirt to wear. So again, lots of interesting religious touches, but there's always this feeling of magic in the background. There have been so many takes on Arthurian legend over the years. Mallory is one of the very big influences, so I really wanted one, a book that had the Mallory version, particularly because it's comprehensive of so many of these other knights. But I think most people nowadays are maybe more familiar with the Disneyfied versions, like T.H. White's, at least first half. This Richard lays a trap to find Lancelot and Guinevere together, and she is accused of treason, and Lancelot is imprisoned. So he fights to free her, and then Lancelot and Arthur have a break-in right as Mordred attacks his father. So the scene of Arthur's past so long ago comes back to haunt him. And he attacks Camelot. This is another one where you can see this straight out of a manuscript of these amazing cannons. And Camelot is so beautiful in the background. The mighty siege. Snake of Mordred. And in turn, Mordred was slain by Arthur, and by him, Arthur was hurt and killed. So dramatic. But we have the idea that perhaps Arthur is not quite dead and is just sleeping under the earth, waiting until the land meets him again. Here is the end of the book of King Arthur and of his noble knights of the Round Table, that when they were whole together there was ever 150. And here is the end of the death of Arthur. I pray you all, gentlemen and gentlewomen, that readeth this book of Arthur and his knights, from the beginning to the ending, pray for me while I am alive, that God send me good deliverance. And when I am dead, I pray you all pray for my soul. For this book was ended the 9th year of the reign of King Edward the Fourth, by Sir Thomas Mallory, knight, as Jesu help him for his great might, as he is a servant of Jesus' day and night. I just think there's so much mystical beauty and interesting historical in so many ways that you can interpret and really contextualize Arthurian legends. So I'm thrilled to have this particular edition. It is one of many in my collection. Thank you for letting me show a little bit of its beauty. I hope that was as enchanting for you all to get a little peek. And if you haven't heard some of the tales of lesser